when thinking about it, like what really drives change in society, unfortunately, like I'd love it that people just want to change things and want to do things better, but really like there's a forcing function that needs
Yeah.
to be had, and that's done through policy. So there are all of these climate policies out there, and what we saw that um, lots of companies know that there are policies that are
Yeah.
impacting them, but they don't really know how to react. They don't know which of those policies because there's so many in the system. So
Yes.
we really felt like we could help companies understand which policies apply to them and how to react, and therefore help companies implement the intention behind policies rather than just paying fines. Because that means
Yeah.
that the money that companies are then spending actually goes towards like the solution
Yeah.
behind this problem.
Wow. Can technology solve our planet's biggest crisis? In the race against climate change, the pressure to build impactful solutions has never been higher. But how do you lead a team when your goal isn't just profit, but planetary survival? Welcome to the Anaya Algorithm, the podcast for leaders who want to build the future intentionally. I'm your host, Magdalene Amagashti, the CEO for Anaya Group. Today, we're joined by a leader who is on the forefront of this challenge, Georgie Steele, a CTO in the climate tech space who is building technology with purpose. In this episode, Georgie shares her playbook for using AI to accelerate climate solutions, building efficient systems that empower diverse teams, and proving impact at speed. This is a masterclass in how to fuse deep technical expertise with the world-changing mission. Please join me in welcoming Georgie Steele.
Thanks so much, Magda. Pleasure to be here.
Georgie, as a CTO, a leader in the climate tech space, and a champion for diverse teams, you sit at the intersection of so many critical conversations. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the Anaya algorithm. Would you mind introducing yourself first, please?
Of course. So, as you said, I'm CTO and co founder of Maven, where we turn macro shifts into actionable insights. So, think of things like policy changes, trade, and geopolitics. We help companies understand what is relevant to them, how it impacts their business, and what actions that they can take. So we built and shipped our MVP in 2 months. We raised 1.5 million pre-seed round in 2 weeks, and now we're working with customers across the globe. My background, I was a full stack engineer, and then went into engineering management before I started founding. So I worked at Tractable, where I helped them become a unicorn. We were working with a lot of AI products. And then I worked at Silvera, which is more of a climate tech company, and I helped scale their backend systems by 10x. And prior to all of this, I worked in Formula One at McLaren as a structural design engineer, where I was the only woman on my team. Um, Magda has
I love it.
encouraged me to say my awards, so I also am recognised in Forbes 30 under 30 in the technology category. I was an IET scholar, so recognised as one of the most promising engineers in the UK. And on top of all of that, I also have helped mentor over 100 engineers through the mentorship schemes that I have set up, and I'm a UN Women UK delegate. Today, I'm really excited to get into topics like org-wide productivity, building with AI, and diversity by design. Can't wait for this conversation.
Wow, Georgie, thank you. I love your intro about yourself. You're impressive. You've got such an impressive career, and really kudos to you for the great work you've done so far. You've built a career leading technology teams, but you've chosen to focus your immense talent on one of the biggest challenges of our time, climate change. What drives you to apply your skills as a CTO to the climate crisis specifically?
I think so. I've always wanted to have an impact. And as a kid, at school, I was really focused on climate. So I was obsessed with this book called Sustainable Energy Without the Hot Air. which is a little bit out of date now, but it's a very good book and I would encourage people to read it. And it essentially goes through how we can power the UK through renewable energies. So that was a lot of the reason why I went and studied what I call traditional engineering. So I studied everything except for software engineering.
Wow.
Um, and then I think, like a lot of people, when they study it, they kind of become a little bit disillusioned because there's a lot of like texts from the 70s, for instance, that are kind of still saying what we're
Yeah.
trying to say now.
Yeah.
So it felt like there was a lot of change to be made, but no one was really listening to it when I was studying. So instead, I went and focused on how can I apply my skills to advanced technologies and helping and hoping that some of the advances we would make would trickle down into society. I think I was a bit naive to think that I could do that in Formula One. The advances, like, although great, they really don't impact society globally. Um, so then when I moved into software, I was looking for companies where I could have a much bigger impact. Um, and I think working at Silvera really helped reignite that passion for climate tech, and helped me realize like how much we can really impact things. And there's such a large community really trying to help push things forward and help make sure that we do have a planet that we like in the future.
Wow.
Um, and I think software and technology has such a huge role to uh, to play in this. Um, so when Larson and I were thinking about what sort of product we want to build at Maven, we really focused on the climate tech space because both of us are very aligned in the fact that we want to be able to say that we have a positive global impact and we want to leave that lasting legacy. And that's what we're trying to build with Maven. So when thinking about it, like what really drives change in society, unfortunately, like I'd love it that people just want to change things and want to do things better, but really like there's a forcing function that needs
Yeah.
to be had, and that's done through policy. So there are all of these climate policies out there, and what we saw that um, lots of companies know that there are policies that are
Yeah.
impacting them, but they don't really know how to react. They don't know which of those policies because there's so many in the system. So
Yes.
we really felt like we could help companies understand which policies apply to them and how to react, and therefore help companies implement the intention behind policies rather than just paying fines. Because that means
Yeah.
that the money that companies are then spending actually goes towards like the solution
Yeah.
behind this problem.
Wow. That is such a powerful mission. Love it. It reframes the role of a technologist from someone who just builds things to someone who actually solves fundamental human problems. And it's a core belief we share at our group that technology must be in service of an intentional purpose. So I love that. Thanks for sharing your, that purpose behind your interest in working within this sector, climate tech. So again, in climate tech, right, success is often measured by both commercial growth and measurable impact. So how do you balance driving revenue with creating meaningful change? And how does that change or shape your product strategy from day one?
Yeah, so we need to prove that we are a viable business first and foremost. And our lead investor, who's Pale Blue Dot, they focus purely on climate tech. And they also have a mandate to show climate tech companies are successful companies,
Yeah,
regardless of the climate angle. So what that means is like you'll see like a lot of the day to day is very similar to other companies where our focus is on helping customers. Ultimately, like they're the ones with an issue that needs solving, and we therefore need
yeah,
to come in and solve that issue. But also, then you think about the impact angle, they're the ones that also need to act and they need to have help to be able to do that effectively. So in terms of how we think about impact, we're held to account that we actually measure this as a business metric, and we report that to our investors as well. And I think like in the future, so the product is fairly young, and what we want to be able to do is to be able to say customers by using Maven have acted in these ways and implemented these things, and therefore not only have we saved them loads of money because they haven't had to go to
Yeah.
a consultancy or they haven't had to pay fine,
Yeah.
um, but also like they've saved X number of carbon tons because they've implemented this policy and that sort of thing. So like, although we're not there yet with the product, like that's the sort of metrics that we then want to be able to report. Um, and on top of that, how it also kind of leads into the business is thinking about the specific areas that we want to tackle. So, I mean, there is a world in which we could have gone for policy overall,
Yeah.
but really, like, we want to be able to focus on. Well, it's important to focus on a like specific sector, but also like choosing that means that we are able to have the impact that we want and need to have, like both professionally and as
Yeah.
individuals on the world.
Awesome. Um, and there's a lot of lessons that any leader could learn from what you shared. And thinking about climate tech and as you would imagine, like the need to prove value quickly, build quickly, and prove value quickly. In a field as complex as climate tech, how do your team do that? And what does a minimum viable product look like when you're trying to have a tangible climate impact?
Yeah, I think it's very similar for most software products, to be honest. Um, but maybe if I tell you like how we started, and that can hopefully
Yeah,
like give some insights there. Um, because when we started building Maven, we said that we want to solve three things for customers. We want to be able to match policies to customers so that they know which policies impact them. We then want to be able to tell them what the impacts and risks are for their business. And then we want to tell them what actions we can take. That's a pretty big product to have to build. So from there, we broke it down. We've got these three things. Let's just start with the first. um,
yeah,
what are the policies that apply to a customer? Even that, when you're starting and building from scratch, is such a lot to have to build. So then, like the way that I think about breaking these things down is pick apart the question that a user wants answering. So that is, what are the policies that are relevant to me?
yeah,
Okay, so from there I can say, what are the policies that are relevant to me? Maybe I start on like the me part. That's you
yeah,
as a user within a company, but it's also just what about just the overall company and simplifying it in that way. Um, and then what are the policies that are relevant to me? Okay, well, what about the policies? Which policies are you interested in? And we can say, okay, well, that's climate policies. Is it a subsection of climate policies specifically? Where in the world are those policies? Are you looking at active or passive or future policies? And do you want to view all policies or just ones that are relevant to you? And I think that last one is particularly an interesting one because if if viewing all of the policies is still useful, you can start there because it's much easier to build. Then I don't have to build this whole
yeah,
relevance algorithm for a user, right? So essentially, like by picking apart this question, the aim is to narrow the scope as much as possible or break it down into little baby steps that you can build that still
yeah,
increment value for users. Because what you want when you're building a product from zero is to be able to build something as fast as possible so you can show it to users and prove or disprove your
yeah,
hypothesis. So we started with, and the other thing that was really important for us was understanding what's the most important thing for a user from a tech perspective. So when I say that, what I mean is a user might be most interested in the data. They might be most interested in how that data is delivered. And if they need a UI, then they might be really interested in the UI itself. For us, our product is very data focused. It's really important that that data is correct and that that data covers jurisdictions, for instance.
Yeah.
So we started with the most basic UI. It was literally just a list of policies. And because we found out that even just viewing all policies had some value for users, very small, but still some, it meant that we could focus on getting and integrating policies into the app. And we did it with a really small subset of policies. We kept like the data sources that we were integrating with very, very tight. And we chose the one that really was the easiest to integrate with from a tech perspective so that we could show something to users really quickly. And then from there, we built it out. So our initial users were really focused on carbon policies. So we focused on that. We created a topic for carbon in the product.
Yeah.
So that we could label all of these policies. We then looked at that active, passive, or future. So looking at what is the effective date of policies and really building it up from there and having like the simplest relevance algorithm on the app, which essentially was, are you in this geography? Are you in this sector? Therefore, these ones are relevant to you.
Yeah, nice. I love that. Thank you so much for such a brilliant insight. And it still shows that you guys did such a formidable job getting that MVP within such a short time.
Yeah, worked fast.
Yeah, I bet there were some sleepless nights. So let's talk about AI.
Mm.
How are you specifically using AI to accelerate the development of climate solutions? Can you give us examples of how AI helps you build products that have a greater impact than, than would otherwise be possible?
Yeah, so the way that teams are currently handling this problem in companies is that it's a really manual process. They're tracking policies from lots of different sources, then looking into each of those documents to figure out if those policies are relevant to them,
Yeah,
and then writing summaries to share with the rest of the organization so that they understand. It's that sort of very manual flow. And what's more, because there are so many different sources to keep track of, we found that lots of people, even if they do have teams, which isn't always the case, they still struggle to keep track. So for us, we need to make sure that we have the source of truth in our
yeah,
product. So that means that we have a massive database of climate policies and we pull from lots of different sources to ensure that we're tracking all of the latest developments within our database. So we now have over 500,000 policies on our product.
wow,
Um, and then to your question, so for each document, we apply AI in a variety of different ways. So when a document comes into our system, we extract the text. Sometimes we can do that through traditional ways. Sometimes we need to do it with AI, with OCR. And then we extract specific data points that are useful for customers. So I mentioned earlier, like the effective date of a policy.
yeah,
And then from there, we do topic matching and sector matching on the policy text. And that's done largely through semantic similarity, but also we're building a much better model to be able to do that once we have the like labels and concrete
yeah.
data to be able to do that. So that's some of the like ways we apply AI on documents that you can imagine with a corpus of 500,000 documents. It's
About
really
to say.
hard for a
That's a lot.
human to be able to do that by hand.
Yeah,
And then we also have this suggestion algorithm, so suggesting like which policies are relevant for customers. And then we also use a bunch of foundational models within the product to like understand risks and impacts specific to users, as well as a chat bot that's built on our extensive data set to answer user questions. And I think
wow.
like how this accelerates the development of like how this accelerates climate solutions is really like more building with experts gives that credibility and accountability. And then using AI gives that speed and breadth.
Right.
So with our product, we have a brilliant climate policy expert that is in the loop and helps us develop. So that means that once we have the AI combined with the expert, that's when you get decision grade insights to customers.
Wow, that's brilliant. And I love how when you mentioned 500,000 policies, I was thinking, wow, that must be a perfect example of, using AI to augment human capability, not
Mm,
replace it, right? And you're using it to process complexity at a scale that humans can't, especially at the pace that you need it done.
yeah.
It would take way longer if you needed to rely only on humans, you doing it, very, very manually. So your team can make better, faster decisions. And that's the sweet spot for AI's true value.
Yeah, exactly.
I just love your passion, just so you know, you're passionate about creating efficient systems that enable every team member to contribute. And it just comes through as you kind of describe in the processes. So, what does that look like in practice? And what's one process or tool you've implemented that has unlocked your team's ability to innovate more effectively?
Yeah, I have to say, like, um, coming from being like a few years in engineering management to co-founding and coming back like hands-on, it's really made me realize like all the coding AI tools are way more impressive than I even thought. I thought they were good. I'm like, my team should use them for sure, but
Yeah,
actually using them myself has been completely eye-opening. And I remember us talking about this at the dinner we were at recently.
yeah, I can remember.
um yeah. And initially I was also like so worried about the costs behind them as well. I think both like financial costs, but also the concern that it can make spaghetti code, and I mean, all those horror stories. But um knowing that I have a very senior and knowledgeable team, I've basically set an unlimited budget on them. I'm like, if you have a tool that you want to use, just let me know. We
Yeah.
can buy it, use it as much as possible. Um, so I think like those sorts of tools have been fantastic. I always say like I basically got like 3 extra juniors in my team by having my team use Claude Code or Cursor and that sort of thing. But I also think how you enable the rest of your org to be able to use those tools effectively is really important.
Yeah,
So everyone in the company uses Claude Code or Cursor.
yeah,
They have our code base set up on their laptop. And this is like non-technical people in the company as well. So what that then means is people who are much more frequently talking to our customers are much better able to say, okay, actually there's this one small change that we need in the product and I'm not going to bother engineering and I'm just
true.
going to do it myself. And what could have been like an hour's worth of coding time for us, but then you couple that with 25% context switching time, and then
Yeah.
communication back and forth between a product person or a customer facing person and the engineer, and helping them like envision what they want, and a bit of guesswork and that feedback back and forth. Like at best,
Takes
that's
way
like
longer.
exactly, and at best that's like 2 hours, right? Or half
Yeah.
a day at worst, and there's 2 people working on that. Whereas like enabling a product person or a customer facing person to be able to make a small change themselves,
Yeah.
and then for us to just do a PR review, it's like 1 hour for product maybe, and then 15 minutes of engineering time. Like it significantly like shortcuts that
It
cycle.
does. Yeah.
I think like what's important is you put around the like right guidelines in place in your org. We have vibe coding guidelines that say that I think for instance one of that is literally just like if the number of files being changed is above 5 to 10, get an engineer on a call. You're probably going wrong somewhere.
Yeah.
Let us help you. Or um what's some of the other ones? Oh yeah, making sure all the tests are in place so that like they know how to run the tests, or the tests run automatically on the PR in our case. So we know immediately if like something is wrong and they need to go back and fix it. And we don't need to say anymore because they know how PRs work and they can see that something's wrong. And finally, like within the code base, making sure there's a really good like agents.md file or claude.md file. And for those people who aren't familiar with what this is, it's basically just a like markdown file with a set of instructions for any AI coding agent to use. And that's really helpful when you've got non-technical people writing code on your code base, because it will say in there, for instance, make sure to run the test after every change. And then the AI agent will take care of that. And you don't need
Yes.
to remind someone to do that. I think the other side of this is complex changes that a product or a customer facing person are thinking about. By enabling people to vibe code and like just kind of let loose on your code base in a like constrained way means that they are able to create product mock-ups really, really well. And it's so easy to understand what they're envisioning without them having to fiddle around in Figma for ages. So that handoff has been really good. And I think the other thing with that is, instead of just seeing something in Figma, you've actually got a PR that you can look at as an engineer and say, okay, well, this is exactly the style that they were thinking. So I can kind of take that chunk. The rest of it, like, I don't love the code, like, or it's not high quality enough for what we need
Yeah.
in our code base. But like that has been really, really valuable.
Wow. Like all I'm hearing, in addition to the fact that you're building that cohesive environment, is like you're creating that condition for success for everyone in your team. And it's not just about adopting tools, you're building again that cohesive environment where the path of least resistance leads to contribution and innovation, which is amazing.
Mm. Yeah. Still working on like how we get it perfect, because now that we've had to put in these 5 coding guidelines, I don't want people to think, oh, I'm not sure, so I can't contribute. I still want them to like try and contribute, and then we can
Yeah,
kind of have a back and forth and iterate.
awesome. Love it. So fantastic. Thank you. So you've emphasized in earlier discussions the importance of enabling a diverse team. Why is diversity not just a social good, but a strategic necessity when building technology for a complex global problem like climate change?
Um, I have a really strong belief that if you empower diverse teams, you'll end up building products that resonate across society, and that fosters greater equity for all.
Absolutely.
I think that applies beautifully and very intuitively to B2C companies,
Yeah.
especially. Um, so we're building B2B, so naturally our audience is a bit smaller, but you have to take into account still, like, our audience is still just as diverse. We
Yeah.
don't know what the like end users um are on our products and systems. So therefore, by having a diverse team, it gives us that competitive advantage, because we will be able to better spot or like understand how to build and design better for a greater section of society, just by having like a better section of society within our team. And I
Yeah.
appreciate like we're a total company size of 7, so we're not going to have perfect representation, but
Yeah.
even within that, like the amount of different ideas coming to the table is much better than it would be like if we didn't have diversity within that
Yeah.
7.
I really couldn't agree more. It's the principle that a homogeneous team will produce homogeneous solutions, which
Yes.
will inevitably fail to address the needs of a diverse world.
Yeah, exactly. A homogeneous team will produce homogeneous
Homogeneous
solutions for
ex-
that homogeneous like section of society.
of society. I agree. And building an inclusive team is a direct prerequisite for building an inclusive and effective product.
Mm, yeah, agree.
I love this. Thank you for sharing. So beyond hiring a diverse team, how do you actively enable them? And what does your leadership playbook look like for ensuring every voice is heard and every team member feels empowered to contribute their unique perspective?
Nice. I'm so glad you asked this because often when I'm advising companies, I get asked about hiring, particularly with that diversity lens. And my first response is always, well, what do you do with your existing employees to support them? And
Nice.
they don't normally connect the dots between, oh, if I want to hire a diverse team, I need to support a diverse team, which I think, like, to you and I, Magda, because we're active in this
Yeah,
space a lot, it seems very obvious. But I think to a lot of
yeah,
people, it's not necessarily. Um, I think there are a lot of small things you can do to make a big difference. So, for instance, quiet people in meetings. Uh, they often, like, you probably know the type where they seem quite quiet in meetings, they're not contributing, and actually, like, actively seeking out their opinions, to make sure that you're hearing their voice, and that they recognize that, like, their voice is valued as well. But equally, like, these sorts of people tend to have really awesome insights because they're very active listeners. They've been hearing the whole
yeah,
conversation. They're probably thinking things through very well in their head. So making sure you're, like, seeking for all of the voices in the room is really important. Um, Other small things that make a big difference is agendas for meetings.
yeah,
Um, it's just like people's minds work in different ways. Some people are very good at thinking on the spot. Some people are really good at preparing their thoughts and ideas for a meeting. So making sure you're allowing for, like, lots of different
yeah,
ways of thinking and contributing. And then similarly, having different ways of consuming information. So, whether that be, like, I'm sharing a slide or I'm creating, like, a mirror board or a whiteboard, and all of these different things. I think, like, Miro is really, really awesome because, again, that means that everyone can contribute and it's
yeah,
very, like, equal footing within that sort of space. And then other things that are more like, making sure you've got flexible start and finish times. Um,
yeah,
I mean, kind of people have lives outside of their job,
yeah.
and recognizing that that life doesn't naturally fit into a 9 to 6 or whatever the working
That's
hours
it.
are.
Yeah,
Um, I very much operate on I, we as a team, we work really, really hard. I trust you to get your work done when it
yeah,
suits you. If you want to go to the gym during the middle of the day, I think that's fantastic.
yeah.
I respect and admire that, and I would also love to do that. you know? Um, and then there are other things that are, like, more thought through policies. Parental leave being a really big
Yeah,
one. Um, when you when you allow equal parental leave, you encourage, everyone to, like, it benefits everyone, right?
it
Because that
does.
means
It
that
does.
the fathers get more time with, their children. It means that, the mothers or the, like, typical, like, female caregiver in the relationship, um, they get they feel more empowered to take all of their
Yeah,
maternity leave. And there's a lot of evidence to say that, like, productivity and employee retention will increase as a result.
yep.
Um, and then other policies include health insurance. Um, I
That's
think when I had, and we spoke about this, at the dinner as
yeah.
well, like, when I had, when I went through lots and lots of surgeries because, I have terrible hips,
Oh, bless you.
having health insurance through my company really, really helped cover those costs that really,
Yeah,
like, um, I wouldn't have been able to otherwise.
yeah,
Um, and as a result, like, it really made me so grateful and so appreciative of that company for being able to support me in that way.
yeah,
And the other things that I found very beneficial from that, it was, like, a staggered return to work policy. This kind of covers after any long period off, making sure you're supporting people and understanding what
yeah.
their needs are. and helping to like structure work around that. And I realize I'm just listing lots of things off at you,
A
but there's
lot of
so many
amazing things.
there's so many other things that you can think of, like approach to promotion and compensation frameworks, which is similar to like how you would plan to have a diverse and equitable hiring pipeline.
Yeah,
So making
yeah,
sure you kind of approach them in a similar way. And I think like a really awesome thing that a lot of companies do already, which is supporting imp- uh, like diverse groups within the company.
yeah,
So whether that be like women in tech, that
yeah,
sort of thing. But making sure that the actions from those groups really are like valued and
yeah.
acted on.
The first point you made about, giving people who are quiet in the room, that nudge, gentle nudge to get their voices out and to speak, literally took me back to many years ago. You probably wouldn't believe me, but I was always the last person to speak in the room. I would need to always be nudged, and the feedback would always be, she's the person who actually needs to speak. She's the one who has the knowledge, but she will take longer. But I would be the person who is literally absorbing all the what everyone is saying before I would speak. So it goes a long way to give someone you've identified to need that nudge to be giving that support. And I got a lot of that support. So you probably wouldn't tell now because you might think I speak up, but I've come a long way and I still do appreciate those who are there to give that support. It goes a long way.
Mm, yeah.
And you've highlighted a lot of amazing, support that um, depending on where you are in your life journey. It could be a health challenge, it could be a family challenge. All of that piece makes you whole. It makes it's a part of you. So ensuring the person can bring their authentic self, they can give their best self to you if you give them the best support. So
Yeah.
that's really good. And I love that you also made this crucial point because it's actually also creating a psychological safety, right? It sounds like what you're doing, your role as a leader who is also the chief enabler for ensuring the systems are in place for the best ideas to rise to the top, regardless of where they come from.
Yeah. Exactly. Something.
Yeah, that's awesome. So thank you. Before we go to the last question, I want us to talk about the next wave of tech. So
Mm.
looking at emerging technologies beyond AI, what are you most excited about? And how do you see it applying to the climate tech space?
Mm. I was thinking about this. I think what's going to be really interesting is probably the mix of AI with hardware products. So things like drones for agriculture,
Hmm.
which I know like some people are already working on, where you can use drones to understand health of crops and therefore figure out what sort of things you need to like what sort of things do you need to put on your crops to make them better? I'm not an agricultural expert, but something like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's really interesting. And then another one which I think is cool is battery optimization for longer ranges on electric vehicles.
Yeah.
Um, which again, I know people who are working on it, and it's very
That's
exciting.
exciting. I was going to say.
But I'd really love to see how this can apply to industries like shipping, for instance. Um,
Hmm.
I feel like the shipping industry, well, A, it's a big pollutant, but B, like a lot of these new technologies aren't really aimed at them. So how we
Yeah.
can build things that like resonate with those sorts of
Yeah.
industries, and really what
Yeah.
it's going to come down to is either policy or cost.
Yeah.
Because either someone's going to have to be forced to implement these technologies, or they will want to implement them because it will help make their profit margins better.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you. So finally, and I have to say that battery optimization, I'm going to follow on that one. Sounds very interesting, an interesting space to probably invest in.
Yeah.
So finally, what is your one piece of advice for a technology leader who wants to pivot their career or their company towards making a more meaningful, positive impact on the world?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like the beauty of having a career in software is that you're not really restricted to specific industries. So it's easy for
True.
us to try so many different things. Um, so if it's about career, like figure out what sort of impact you want to have. Is that climate, education, equal access to finance, medical? There are so many
Yeah.
different things. Um, and then also thinking about what scale of impact are you satisfied with? So do you want to impact like on the personal scale, national scale, or a global scale? And each of those come with aspects that bring different levels of joy and will be like very individual to you.
Yeah.
And when you do want to join a company that's creating that sort of impact, if that's what you're looking to do, then do you want to build that company from the ground up, or do you want to come into something that's more established? Um, and kind of going through those, like the rest of the like typical questions you might ask yourself when you're either thinking of starting a new job or a new career or
Yeah.
founding something. But I think most importantly, like just go for it. Don't overthink it. Choose a company or a next step that suits you in terms of what you're looking for at this point in your career. And then weigh out things that in a way that feels natural to you. So whether that be culture, learnings, working with specific technologies, or impact, and weigh those out how you see fit. And if impact's higher for you at this point, then focus on companies that you feel are doing really positive things in the world.
Yeah. Wow. And I love this. I always say tech is a driver. It is a driver. So you can work in any industry, but just go with where you find purpose.
Mm,
And that's it.
yeah.
And you said it perfectly. Georgie, this is a powerful and hopeful note to end on. Thank you for sharing your playbook and your purpose with us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Magda. It's been a pleasure.
It's been amazing, and I can't wait to follow how your journey goes. And hopefully, we can have you on this podcast again. Looking forward to more success stories from you. What an inspiring conversation. For me, the key takeaway is that for the most complex challenges like climate change, building a diverse and enabled team isn't just a part of the strategy, it is the strategy. The right technology is built by the right team. To follow Georgie's work, please visit the links in our show notes. And if you are a leader looking to build your own purpose driven technology strategy, you can learn more about our frameworks at Anaya Group by visiting anaya.org. Until next time, keep leading intentionally. Thank you.